on here was taken from the state of Tennessee's licensing rules and regulations for child care centers. We're just going to have it all in one place now for new employees and anyone who needs to rewatch for some reminders. The only thing that's not included in this is field trip supervision. And since that's only a school age thing right now, we will leave that out, and we can make a separate one just for that, just for Sakers if needed. First, going over general supervision rules for children 6 weeks to age 9. When it says age 9, it means on the day before they turn 10. You have to be able to hear them, see them with a quick glance, and physically respond immediately, which means they cannot go to the bathroom by themselves unless you're able to watch their entire journey. So basically what that means is, can you position yourself to see the child? If the child turns a corner and is under the age of 10, then that would be a no-no. That would be a violation. For 10 years and up, you just have to know the whereabouts of each child and be able to physically respond if they needed you. So that would mean if they say, I'm going to the bathroom and the bathroom is down the hall, that is okay, as long as you are there if they need you to run to the place where they're at. These are the 3 things that these are repeated in licensing over and over about supervision. Know where they are at all times, be aware of their activities at all times, and be able to intervene appropriately at all times. Those are the 3 things they really push hard. Then we move on to mealtime supervision. For children 6 weeks to 5 years, you have to be in direct sight and sound. All faces can be seen by a staff. That doesn't mean the back of their head or the side of their head. You have to be able to, when you are looking straight ahead, you see every child's mouth. One staff is sufficient for this as long as they're in a position where they see all faces. We'll look at some examples of that in a minute. During those times when you're supervising children who have food available to them, you cannot be engaged in any other activity that doesn't involve food service. This would mean, when you're sitting there, you can help them serve the food. Of course, we don't do family meals, so that's not going to be an issue. It would mean opening items for children they need, but they have to come to you with their juice box or whatever it is they have. You stay in your seat where you can see everyone's mouth. All items, napkins, spoons, extras need to be accessible to the children so you don't get up. This is where children really get some independence. When you are sending them to go get a napkin, you are sending them to go wash their hands without you, that is all okay, and that helps build their independence. Let me say though, before we move on, if they have food in their mouth and they're chewing and they say, I need to go get a napkin, you have to make sure all that food is swallowed before they can get up. So then we look at infants ages 6 weeks to 12 months. Again, when they say 12 months, they mean the day before they turn 13 months, you are still going by these infant rules. The day they turn 13 months, a little bit changes. Infants must be held while drinking a bottle. Check an infant's mouth before lying them down every time to ensure there's no food still in their mouth. Bottles can never be propped up. An infant should never take a bottle while lying flat. So when you're holding them, you have to prop them. They can't be lying flat. They can never, ever carry a bottle or a sippy cup around the classroom. And no drink can ever be on a cot or a crib with that child. Now, when I got into supervision of infants, it goes into other things like, they cannot be left, all these specific rules, but they don't really relate to supervision. So as of right now, when it comes to bouncy seats, just making sure you take a child out of a bouncy seat within 15 minutes and not leaving them there for extended amounts of time, that falls under supervision. But this is a general supervision training. So if we do need an infant specific training, we can create that for infant teachers who come in as new or need to be reminded, but that is not included. All those details are not included here. All right. We are going to look at pictures of meal times and decide whether this is appropriate. Okay, so this lady right here, she is sitting at this kind of table. Is she able, when looking straight ahead, to see everyone's face? We're just looking at what we can see in the picture. We're not going to assume anything. The answer would be no, because this child right here is a problem. Moving on to this one. Is this teacher able to see every child's mouth? The answer would be no, because of these three children right here. Now he can bend over and see them, but we have to see them sitting, looking straight ahead. Oh, guys, it's leaving that on there. Yikes. Okay. Ignore my blue circles. I didn't know it would carry over to the next slide. This guy right here, is he able to see all of these children's faces as long as they're not leaning back? We're not going to take into account whether they're leaning back. Yes, this is a proper supervision that would be approved by DHS because he's sitting here. He can see all the way down through here and all the way through there. Oh, I have trouble sometimes. Okay, this one. Remember, we are just taking into account what we can see in the picture. Is this appropriate right here? And we're going to assume that there is food on the table ready to be passed out. And if food is accessible to children, that means supervision should be occurring, even if it's not on their plates yet. So the answer here is going to be no, because of these children right here, these two little boys and little girl, they can't see them. They're looking at the backs of their heads. What about right here? Ignore my circles. The answer for this one is going to be no. This child, when looking straight ahead, she cannot see. Where would she position herself to where she can see all the faces? Right here at the head of the table. Appropriate? Yes. Child is not laying flat. They're holding him and feeding him. Forget the circle. Is this appropriate? Absolutely not. They're laying down. And playing with a bottle, not appropriate. Oh, these circles. Well, I learned a lesson, didn't I? Okay. All right, now moving on to nap time supervision. Oh, I want to cover that, the best way to position yourself, and I didn't draw this. I guess I could. Let me go back. The best way to position yourself with mealtime supervision with a large classroom and one staff member is going to be I'm going to draw a table right here in an L shape. You got children right here. Most of you guys have your table like this. And you're going to have your staff member. He would move over a little bit and he would sit right here in the corner. That way he sees all these guys and all these guys. Now, if he has two staff members, that other staff member would sit, say, right here or over here. However, when the kids start finishing up, these staff members are able to help as long as this guy stays in this spot where he can see all these kids and all these kids. When he looks straight this way, he sees all them. When he looks straight this way, he sees all them. So you're good. You only need one staff with an L-shaped table if that's all you have. Of course, it would be convenient if these guys could stay for a while. Another thing I suggest is always putting all of your slow eaters at one table and all of the children that finish fast down here, because these guys are going to be ready to get up and go. And these guys could be there for, gosh, who knows? Y'all know how it goes, 45 minutes. That's where a timer comes in handy, guys. Put a timer down. You have 10 minutes to finish. So in that case, all these kids get up. This guy has great supervision of his slow eaters, and this staff member can get up and assist these guys who are fast eaters. Okay, let's move on to nap time supervision, which is a pretty big deal. As we know, I know you guys know, we touch infants, and an infant is what? An infant is an infant until the day they turn 13 months. So when they are 12 months and 28 days, they're still an infant. We touch infants every 15 minutes. Each center has their own plan to do that, and then you document it. When I say touch, I mean touch. You don't just go look at them. You have to feel for their temperature and breathing, not just breathing. You're looking for temperature too. Ratios will remain the same in infant and toddler classrooms during nap. If they're under 31 months, which again means 30 months and 30 days, they're still considered infant toddler until the day they turn 31 months. Those ratios remain the same at nap time. Classrooms with children who turn 31 months on that day and up, ratio is lessened by 50%. However, even though the ratios are lessened, you still have to be sure that you have enough staff present on the premises, which means playground, parking lot, office, wherever, break room, to cover ratios as if they were awake. So, I mean, that can be directors, that could be anyone who is on the premises. That doesn't mean that all staff have to stay at the premises. You just have to make sure that the director, assistant director, and you have enough as if they were all awake somewhere there. When do we do roll calls? A roll call is, I can hear you and I can see you. So if you say Jennifer and I don't respond and you don't see me respond, then that is, you have to further investigate. Roll call means I said, I'm here, and you visually looked at me and saw me when I said that. You need to do roll calls before you exit the class at any time. Anytime you arrive to the class, you need to do it before playing on the playground and before leaving the playground. This does mean before you leave for the playground in the classroom, you do roll call. And then when you get onto the playground, you do it again. It would also mean before exiting the playground, you do it. And then as soon as you get back in the room, you do it again. And it is excessive. But when you see the consequences of leaving someone on a playground, and it does happen, then you will understand why it's excessive. So our critical supervision violations, according to licensing, is a child walking out of a child care center, a child left in a classroom, left on a playground, left at a field trip site, or left on a vehicle. Those are our supervision violations that are critical. Possible consequences of critical violations: removal of the employee. You can be suspended as a child care center. Your license can be suspended. Your license can be revoked. We can be looking at lawsuits, and we've got to be sure it's our first priority. And there are things you can do to make sure that you don't leave children. And that's being engaged. It's being present with those kids, having routines set. So that way you're always doing something. You're eating, and then you're moving to an art activity, a story time, and free play where both teachers are engaged with the children during play. You know what's going on if you're involved. Just standing there and being a warm body is not, that is when violations occur. It's when you're not engaged. It's when you're not wanting to be there. You got to be invested in these children, and you won't lose them. That whole mutual respect thing, that goes a long way. If you're respecting the children's views and what they have to say, what they want to do, then they respect you. And children who respect you and love you typically do not run off. So are you treating the children like a human being, or are you just dismissing, oh, I don't like this behavior, go sit down over there? All right. And when that child does go sit down over there, a lot of the times, naturally, you forget about them. Why? Because you're dealing with 16 other kids or however many kids, and that child's sitting over there in a corner, and it's a perfect time for that child just to sneak out. Why? Because he's mad at you, and because you don't have time to sit there and look at him the whole time he's in a timeout. So watch timeouts. Extra supervision and awareness for those who are a high risk. We all know who our runners are. So just really focus on them, keep them engaged in stuff, keep them doing stuff, keep them busy. That's what is going to assure that nothing tragic happens. It's when you are not being just a warm body. All right, guys, you guys do a great job. Our supervision is phenomenal. Sometimes slips happen, and that's what this training is for. When you walk into a child care center as a brand new employee, you have no clue you're supposed to do roll call. You have no clue you got to see every mouth when eating. And that's what this is for. Thanks, guys. See you in August.